Oh, I'm sorry. Good evening, everybody. I was muted.
Hey, Claire. Here's Mr. Rooney.
Good afternoon.
Hey. Are we going to see you?
Yeah, I'm on my cell, so I'll try to be there when I speak.
Okay, they're ready. There's Tim.
No worries.
There's Tim. All right, so I am calling the meeting of the advisory committee to order on June 23rd at 6:32 p.m. And all members are here. Pursuant to Senate Bill 2475, which was signed into law by Governor Baker on June 15, 2021, this meeting of the Southborough Advisory Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information in the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with the right and a requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Southborough's website at www.southboroughtown.com. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch or participate in the meeting may do so in the following manner by finding the meeting at www.southboroughtown.com/remote meetings. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on Southborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. So, hello, everyone. So, everybody, I hope saw my email that Judy decided to resign effective immediately, so she's not here tonight because of that. We'll talk about that in a minute. So we'll continue. We're all caught up with minutes except for last meeting. So Claire circulated the 6:10 minutes. I have not had a chance to look at it. I'm sorry, Claire, but I just truly ran out of time. Has anyone else actually had a chance to look at them and feel comfortable enough to?
They look good to me.
Is that Tim? Was that you?
Yes.
Okay.
I thought they were fun.
Anybody else?
I have it as well,
Yeah,
but
Kathy,
I
I
don't see any
read
reason
them.
to wait for you, Kathy. Like, I think we should wait till you get a chance to review. Is what I'm saying.
Since we're going to have 4 members after on the 30th. Okay, so we will wait.
Look,
If that is the
well,
committee pleasure.
Kathy, the only thing I would say is if we're running out of members, maybe we should get our business done while we can.
AP?
I mean, I glanced at them. I thought they were fine, but I mean, then we're going to have an issue with these minutes. So,
Yeah.
kind of,
Jason, have you looked at them? Okay, so in that case, let's just go ahead and approve these minutes so we're all caught up and we're not behind as far as at least that piece of it goes. Okay, Jason.
I'll move
Yeah,
the
Kathy, my only concern.
Go ahead, John.
Go ahead, Jason. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, John.
My only concern is that a lot of the substance relates to conversations and you addressed. I think with Jason, I'd be more comfortable if you had an opportunity to read them and to approve them. I mean, you're gonna have a similar problem approving these minutes. So that's my thought.
Yeah, so, and Kathy, I think if we don't have another meeting in the next 45 days, but we have to, unless there's no departmental transfers or reserve funds, you have a draft to comply with town code to provide to the town clerk.
Okay,
And open meeting law says you don't have to do it for 3 meetings.
I think that's a good compromise. We'll send the draft. Claire and I'll send the draft in. We'll have a draft posted, right? We are going to have reserve fund transfers and we are going to have interdepartmental transfers also. So that's a fact. Okay, so does that sound like a good compromise? We'll submit the draft minutes. So we've got that posted, right? And then we will approve them next meeting.
That's fine.
I just, the best laid plans of mice and men. I had it on my schedule today and thought I had time, but things just didn't happen the way they were supposed to. Okay, so chair report. So I just sent you guys, I forwarded you an email, which is one of the things that hung me up today because I got an email from Mary Lou Woodford that I just sent to everybody. I'm not going to say much about it. It's kind of self-explanatory. I did call Paul Sabelli and talk to both he and Barbara Sperry this afternoon and got hung up on. So we'll talk more later as far as that goes, but it was a pretty disconcerting email. Okay, so everybody knows that our friend Judy has resigned, which, as I said, the email makes me very sad. She's been on advisory for a long time, and she's just a lovely human being. So I hate to see her go, but I understand what she wants to do. She's got a new grandbaby who she adores, and she's got one child, and that's what she wants to do. So good for her. She's certainly given a lot of time to this town, so deserves a lot of credit for what she's done. So last night, did anyone actually watch or go to the Board of Selectmen meeting?
I watched it.
Who watched it?
I did.
Andrew? Okay,
Yeah.
so Andrew, if I say something wrong, I've heard snippets as far as what happened. So I know I've talked directly to people who were there, Sam Stivers and Jim Haggerty. Okay, so most important thing is the date of the fall town meeting has been set now for October 4th at 7 p.m. inside at the Trotter Auditorium. So we at least now have a date to shoot for. So that will give us July, August, September, 3 months, which of course will fly past. They did appoint a new town council last night, who we know him, his Jay Tellerman, we've seen him before at town meetings. So now, Andrew, it's my understanding that he's agreed, or his firm's agreed to do the work for a flat fee of $84,000. Does that sound right to you?
Correct.
Okay, so John, I don't know if you heard that, but $84,000 flat, and they've agreed to have hours that they're going to come regularly for people to talk to them. So it's a done deal.
And Kathy, relative to advisory's role, I assume Aldo will continue with the trial that is still ongoing. And is he going to be billing the town an hourly rate? And do we have any estimate as to what that will be for both the trial work and the likely appellate work?
Andrew, did they discuss that last night?
Yeah, I would say, John, they don't know what the cost is. They did discuss they were going to have, I think, the new town council firm in on their meeting on July 13th to talk about how to transition and what should transition and what stuff Aldo's further along. It would make sense for him to continue, but I don't think they got into which cases and how long and what the estimated cost is. But
What's the effective date of the hire, Andrew?
7/1.
7/1. So they also appointed the new auditor for the town last night. So they got that done. So they were very productive last night. So that's done too. So we got a new firm taking over. And according to Sam Stivers, it looks like their cost may be less than the previous person, although the previous person wasn't very much to begin with. So anyway, I'm not sure how it could be less, but that's what I was told. So that got done. Then I got another call I got an email from Lisa Braccio about the IT staffing, and then Sam called. And the way I read the email, and I didn't see the personnel board meeting today, but it looks like they have worked out what the qualifications are going to be and what the job description is going to be for the second person in the IT department. And it looks like Jay, the IT director manager, is on board with it, that he is happy with it. He hasn't been talked into it. But, and again, if someone's heard, definitely correct me, but what Sam said is it is a strong second person. It's not a help desk type person. It is a strong second person. And Jay seems to think it's a great idea that they'll work together as a team, huddle as far as what should be done. I don't know if they think that this person is going to fit into SAP as in that manager slot, just as a second manager, or whether they're still going to try to put together a job description to add to the SAP for him. So I don't know that piece of it. That probably got talked about today, but I didn't have a chance to follow
Yeah,
up.
they talked about it a little bit in the meeting. I think they were going to slot the person into just kind of any role, and then they were going to fix it in the fall town meeting. But again,
Are you saying they talked about that today at the personnel board meeting? Is that the meeting you're referring to?
no, it's selectmen.
Okay.
And I think it was like senior IT specialist. And Tim, if you get a chance to watch the meeting, kind of the update from Jason, I mean, he's doing some great work with National Guard, doing a cybersecurity audit, and some other things, and encrypting some emails. He's done a lot in terms of, he's already got the printer, I think, for Board of Health already set up and doing some stuff with them. So there's some good update in there.
So he did elect to deal with their HIPAA issues, Tim, by buying a new scanner for them. They're going to lease it instead of buying it outright. So I'm not sure there's really that much of a difference. It's $10,000 spread over 3 years instead of $10,000 up front. But that did get taken care of. So there's that piece of it goes. So anything else, Andrew, as far as what Jay said last night?
Yeah, I mean, so the specialist, I think the idea is that it's more senior, that he, be able to send him over and he could set up servers and do that kind of thing. And he wouldn't have to supervise him or train him. So somebody that's a little bit more senior than certainly a help desk.
All right, and it's my understanding MTC has approved this. They've approved the job description. Sound right?
Yeah.
Okay, you ready? Okay, Tim, any comment on that piece of it?
No comment.
So the following is a request. So a week ago Friday, I had called, and the townhouse closes at noon. So I called in the morning, Brian Ballantyne, I called Carla McAuliffe, and I called Paul Sibeli, all with separate questions. I wasn't calling with the same question. And they apparently had a meeting the following Monday and realized I called all three. So they all three called me. And basically the message, and it was delivered in a nice way, was that they are extremely busy right now. The implication is they're busier than usual. I'm not quite sure why, other than the work that Carla's having to do to submit paperwork for CARES Act, FEMA, et cetera. But they have politely asked that we try to minimize our requests to them, our phone calls, et cetera. It's not just us. They're talking about anybody that's calling them, but they did ask that we try to minimize our requests. And my reply was, we've got a very busy summer. We are going to need information. We will try to certainly make sure that they only get asked once for the same thing. So, my philosophy has always been, when somebody wants something, call them and get it without having to go through me or anybody else. But I guess what I'm going to say going forward, at least for the next couple months, to try to honor what they've asked us to do, is let me know what you're going to ask for, so that we're not asking for the same thing more than one time. But we can't do our work without getting some information from them. And I told them that. So I said, I hear you. I will pass this on, and we will certainly try to be very efficient with what our requests are.
I think, Kathy, the other option is to get access to the data ourselves. And not have to put in a request and get an email with a one line. Let's get access to the reporting. Let's get access to the general ledger directly and do our own analysis. I mean, we might not know what we're looking at for a little while, but I mean, Jason, I'm sure you know your way around a general ledger system like I do. You can figure out how it works, right?
So while I'd love it to be self-service, Andrew, pulling general ledgers for a living, it's dangerous if you pull it the wrong way and then start asking questions. And even with the best training, everyone sets it up a little differently. And municipal accounting in particular is not typical. And
Not easy. It's not that it's not. I agree. It's not typical.
well,
It's
but,
not easy.
but there's also there's not sophisticated software. There's software out there, right? But it's not sophisticated enough that I know my way around debits and credits. I do it every day. And I struggle every time I look at a municipal ledger. And I do it every day. So I just think I guess I think there's a middle ground is, Kathy, I agree, we have work to do, right? And I think if we lose a summer, then we're not going to be doing the responsibility we've been appointed to do by the moderator. I think Mark, Brian, Carla, their team need to figure out how we do streamline the process, streamline the requests without saying, well, we're very busy, because I just don't think that's going to fly if something gets missed here.
The other thing too is, we had a late town meeting in 21. We don't have a late town meeting in 22. So we'll be starting on budget stuff earlier than we did this last year. So we just can't throw away the summer. So I think that there probably is a middle road here. We should ask for as much at one time, give them as much of a head start on it as we can, and just try not to be redundant with what we ask for. Which I
Is there a
actually,
way,
I
is
don't
there a
think
way
we
to
are.
set up, is there a way to set up like a info request tracker? Like in OneDrive where we just say, this is what we're looking for. And then Mark, Brian, Carla can figure out how they're going to divide it up. And then they put a complete next to it. That way, because I think a lot, like we all get a lot of emails just in our daily lives, not to mention anything that may go through our town emails. I just think the back and forth on email is half the problem. But if you can say, hey, I need this accounting file for this department, and just
I kind of
tell
like
them
that.
why you need it, when you need it by, for what meeting, and let them triage.
And I don't know if you caught what Andrew said a minute ago, and it may be the way it's been asked in all fairness, but a lot of times what comes back is not what you wanted. Exactly. It's not as complete as you wanted. So maybe if we do put it on OneDrive with a really fleshed out question right now, just a quick phone call, it would make it clear more what we want. And we've got a chance to really describe exactly what we want so that they can refer to it and not have to try to remember what somebody asked for on the phone. So I think it's worth a shot. I mean, and show them that we're trying to be respectful.
Maybe we could use the public records request tool too. I mean, I don't know if that would work or not. Mark knows it better than I do, but that one's pretty good where you put in the request and it says complete and you get kind of an audit trail with the documentation attached.
Well, I think that would not go over very well if we started doing that. I mean, they've got enough of that to do. So I think we should try to be as easy as we can. But again, if we're going to talk about stabilization funds, we're going to make sure we've tried to maximize the use of the federal funds that we're getting with because of COVID. I mean, if you look at the list here, there's many things that we really can't do without a team effort with them. So I said exactly what I just said to you guys. I said to Paul, I hear you, but we're not stopping work in the summer, and a lot of stuff we are going to need stuff. So we'll pass the message on. We'll try to be very efficient about what we ask for. I mean, the revolving funds, we have to work with them because they've got information we don't have. So there's just no way we can do the work that we've outlined without their help. And maybe it's a June 30th thing too. Once they get past that, maybe it will be a little bit lighter. So I don't know. And of course, people are taking vacations, et cetera. So anyway, so that's the message. So I passed it on. All right. So I just have to stand up and turn my light. I'll be right back. All right. Now I can see. Okay, so now as far as advisory members, with Judy resigning, with John not renewing, we will be down to 4 after June 30th, which is not even our quorum. So there's efforts being made by several people to talk to people. So I'm still relatively confident that we will have new people soon. But as of today, there is no one that has actually raised their hand. So we've got to keep going till we end up with 3 new people.
So no
least.
one, after all that discussion at town meeting, no one submitted a citizens activity form to the moderator?
I talked to him today, Jason, as of 10 o'clock this morning. No.
And he knows we don't have a quorum after Mr. Rooney's term expires.
He does. He's very well aware of that. So, okay. All right. So that's our big thing. Okay. On to some of the easier stuff. So let me just see who's in the audience.
Want to bring Mr. Hegarty over?
So Al's here too. Let's see what we're going to do. Al needs to be here for advisory ballot. Okay. Yeah. So let's bring Jim over and get his done. And then he's going to stay on with us for a couple more things. There he is.
Hello.
Hey, Jim. So everyone has seen Jim's request. He's going to be reimbursed for, I believe, every penny of this, at least that's what he thinks, but it goes into a different bucket. So his department will be overdrawn. So we've got to just move money around to do this. So this one is a little administrative, I guess is how I characterize it. And then it's changed slightly since what I sent to you. So Jim's going to explain exactly what he wants us to approve.
Actually, you know what? After talking to Carl this afternoon, let's just leave the dollars exactly on the form that you got. And the town has already received this wire transfer from the state. So we have the money in hand.
Okay, so Jim, I've got $12,532.50.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody want to go any further with this one? I mean, we've already got the money, so this is truly an accounting thing.
Why would we approve more than the budget's going to be overdrawn?
The budget is
Listen.
actually,
Okay.
since we did this, the budget is going to be down at $1.64.
Okay, Jason, good enough?
Do you want to amend the motion to change it for the $1.64?
Let's keep going, okay? All right, so can someone make a motion for Jim's reserve fund transfer?
Well, hang on. So we're projecting out a week of activity, correct? Right, because we've got 7 days left in the fiscal year.
Yes, he's projecting he's going to end up with $1 something in his budget when everything is said and done.
Okay, so conceptually, I completely agree. It's an in and out. It's a revenue versus an expense. But if we approve the 12 and change here, I would like it to be subject to refinement that Jim actually has. Whether it's $1 or $1,000 if something hits, I think we shouldn't get in a, Jim, this is nothing with you, but we shouldn't get in a habit of approving anything more than someone needs so that it's not used elsewhere. So Mr. Hegarty is usually very on top of things. He's obviously a town resident, but I've seen approvals in the past where we've given someone a little extra because of a certain issue, and then they used excess in their budget elsewhere. So I would like to do the formal approval in July when we do the reserve fund, but I'm comfortable with the concept now. Does that make sense? I don't need that in the motion, but I don't know if anyone else agrees with the concept, but that's what I'm looking to achieve.
Hey, Kathy, are we approving this to put it on our list, or are we approving
Yeah,
this
because
to?
I want to send it to Brian, show him what we've already done, so he knows what he's got to use with what he's contemplating. So that's why I want to get this done. I want to get these two done tonight. So Jason, I'm not sure why your philosophy wouldn't apply to the fire department, but we'll get to that in a second. That's where I would want to wait. But I thought you wanted to get that one done. This one, Jim.
Well, I think it's going to be the same exact discussion, I think.
Okay, well, that I
I
didn't
think
know.
we're not voting to do a reserve fund transfer. We're voting to
On
add
the
it to our
concept.
list, on which we will hopefully and most likely support on July, whatever, when we do our finals.
This one's going first, that's what I'm trying to say. So we're going to send Brian a list and say, these are the ones that we have already tentatively agreed to approve. So this is what you've got left as far as others, because they're going to decide, there are going to be some that they could either do a reserve fund transfer or do an interdepartmental transfer. So he'll know what he's got left and how much to work with. So that's the purpose of doing this. So we know about this one. We're going to talk about fire department in a second. The only other known ones we know about that we've already agreed to approve is Board of Health. And with Board of Health, I've been told by Carla that we don't need to worry about backstopping any of the extra cost incurred by either the director or by the nurse. We are going to get a reserve transfer apparently for Paul Pazinski's contract, the 6 hours he worked after he resigned as director. And apparently they had a paid intern that was, I don't know, $800, $1,000 or something that's not in their budget either. That apparently is not reimbursable by CARES. So that's coming. That's all we know about so far. But I'm just trying to get, the $180,000 teed up so that Brian knows where we stand before he starts looking at what he thinks should be reserved for a transfer versus an interdepartmental transfer, because he's got a choice of the two buckets in some cases. Fair enough?
And I'll move that we support an amount not to exceed $12,532.50 for the town clerk related to early voting.
Second,
Second.
further discussion? And I'm still not sure what we're exactly, I had intended this actually be a reserve. We don't have to wait till July 15th to do reserve fund transfer. We can do a reserve fund transfer anytime during the year. We have lately, in the last couple of years, said let's wait. So we do them in what we think is a proper order. So we prioritize them. So I had intended for this to actually be approved as a reserve fund transfer. That's not what Jason seems to want. So I'm not sure what we're really approving. The concept of doing a reserve fund transfer, I'm not sure what that means.
I think
Well,
we're
we've
doing
done it for everyone else. We've done it for everyone else. Let's see Mr. Hegarty's final accounting. And he knows that we're going to bless this maximum amount. And, fingers, maybe it's a smaller amount. I trust Jim's projection, but we're 7 days out here. Why are we going to, let's just do it all at once together. We've conceptually approved some Board of Health items earlier in the year. We conceptually approved an antenna for police and fire. So
You're right, but those still are, I'd still distinguish those. Board of Health, we didn't know about the intern. Paul came a little bit later too, but we assumed we weren't going to have to do a reserve fund transfer, that the CARES Act or FEMA would totally reimburse us. So we thought, so that definitely should not have been approved because we didn't think we were going to need to do it in the end. As far as the antenna goes, we wanted to see where Chief Achilles' budget ended up and see if it really did end up being negative, which we'll talk about in a second. So that's why we waited on that one. That was way early in the year. This one I still think is different. He's done. He knows where his budget is. He has nothing left, so it needs to be approved. But if you want to wait, we can wait until it all at once. So I guess, so the motion is the concept that when we officially vote, we're going to approve this. Is that what we're trying to say in this motion? Okay, all right.
my intent.
All right, so enough discussion. So roll call vote. Jason?
Aye.
Cook is aye. AP?
Aye.
Tim? Is that a yes?
Aye, yes, aye.
I didn't hear you. I'm sure I didn't hear you. Mr. Mooney?
All right,
Okay, so Claire, that was 5-0 as the conceptual approval of Jim's reserve fund transfer in the town clerk department. Okay, all right. Okay, so Jim, you're going to stay with us for other discussions.
Mhm.
Okay, all right.
Can I add something, how this is going to impact budgets in the future?
Go ahead.
Because this is significant change. In the past, the state had reimbursed us for certain expenses, unfunded mandates. So we always factored that into the budget. We're going to get the money back. This time around, they underestimated how much money they had, and they only gave us a fraction of it. Anyway, when that 12,000 came in, the state accountants came out and said, you can't reimburse the fund that monies are expended from. It has to go in the general fund. That is a sea change for everybody, and that just came to be. So not only did we have not get this 12.5 into my account, but also monies that we had previously received for extra voting hours at the regular elections, that had to be transferred out today. So in the future, these will drive up my budget because I'm going to have to carry these directly in the budget, and the reimbursement when it comes will come into the general fund. In addition, the legislation that's being passed in the House is going to mandate 2 weeks of in-person early voting, including weekends, for state elections and federal elections. All that money is going to have to go in my budget, and any reimbursement will go to the federal fund. In addition, they're going to pass a bill that will have same-day voter registration, which is going to substantially add to labor on our end at both at the election place. That'll be at least 2 people added on that end, plus somebody in the office. In addition, we're going to have some infrastructure work done at the Trotter School for this, because the only way they can deploy equipment to make this work is via cell, and there are 1,700 polling locations in Massachusetts. So all of this is going to have a substantial impact upon my budget.
This is a problem. You're still talking small bucks, but this were a big number. This is a problem because of what happens. Remember, the local revenue, now it will all work out in free cash eventually, but the local revenue is not a projection of what they really think it is. It's a really, really conservative number, which they don't tend to change from year to year. They bump it up. They bumped it up $20,000 this year because I nagged so much about it. So they were just trying, I think, to appeased a little bit. So they bumped up $20,000, even though we knew we had the mills tax that was going to be passed, even though they knew they had the marijuana money coming in, even though they knew the economy was coming back, they still would not bump it up to $20,000. So Jim's budget goes up by, just make it up, $200,000. Yeah, the money will come back in local revenue, but they're not going to put it in there for that year. So his budget goes up $200,000. So what we need is $200,000 more, which is not the way it should be. So Jim, you're saying a state accountant came out just to tell you this? Made a trip out here just to say?
No. They sent a notice out to Carla and the other accountants. So on the one hand, the Secretary of State and the state auditor said, congratulations, here's reimbursement. And then the accountants came out and pulled the rug off from me and said, not so fast. And we actually had to reverse up the stuff.
All right. So I don't want to spend a long time talking about this. Well, we'll talk about it, but this doesn't make a lot of sense as far as how they do it. I don't know why you wouldn't just net it right out in a budget if that's what you're
Yeah.
being directly reimbursed for.
That's what they've
Sorry.
always done. It. And why they did it midstream is beyond me.
Okay, so we will deal with it. Anything else before we go on to the next reserve fund transfer? Okay. All right, Jason, Chief Achilles is not here. You want to tee this one up?
Yeah,
Or do you
I'll
want me to do
present. Excuse me?
Or do you want me to do it?
I intend to abstain unless we've gotten direction, but I'm happy to provide the details of the discussion I had as the fire department liaison.
Okay, I'll explain to everybody, but we've got no more direction than what I told you earlier, other than I have talked to one other person who is fairly knowledgeable, and they seem to think it was fine too, but no formal.
Yeah, so big picture is the fire chief approached me as the fire department liaison about their inflatable boat that they use for both rescue and unfortunately sometimes recovery on the bodies of water in the town of Southborough, which, as you saw from the advanced reading he provided, is about 10% of the land area in the town. They are currently in their existing boat, which was purchased in 2015 under Chief Morrow. They are currently inflating it about every 24 hours or so to keep air in it. So he is requesting a reserve fund transfer to replace not only the boat, but the motor. And the reason he can't replace the motor is the motor that they currently have does not, would not be adaptable to the new frame / boat that they are proposing to use. The original cost of the boat back in 2015 was approximately $9,000. The request here is a little over $17,000. The important thing to highlight is there hopefully will be some surplus funds from the sale of the usable equipment on the existing boat in terms of the trailer, the motor, and whatever salvage value exists on the actual frame. But as you'll also remember, and the chief asked me to remind everyone because he's out of town, is that he had originally approached us with Chief Paulus earlier in the year for an antenna issue that they were looking for a reserve fund. We had conceptually approved it. He's now been able to see that he'll be able to fund that through his department budget. So that reserve fund request that we conditionally approved back, I think that was the first one, Kathy, back early in the fall.
Yep.
We won't see an actual formal request in July. So it doesn't factor necessarily to decision-making on whether this is a good use of reserve fund or not, but it does factor into, what our total reserve fund balance would be at the end of the year if, every dollar of Mr. Hegarty's, every dollar of Mr. Brzezinski's contract that Kathy just informed us about will come true. So if the chief does not get the reserve fund transfer, I asked him what he would do. They'll continue to maintain what they have, and he will look at his department budget at the end of the year and see if there's any way to do it, but he doesn't foresee doing that based on, again, we're 7 days in the year, or he'll bring it forward at the fall town meeting. So that's the plan. That's who he's looking for approval or discussion on from advisory.
So the discussion that Jason alluded to a minute ago, as far as abstaining, I assume AP will abstain also for the same reason. We believe that they can count as part of a quorum. I did try to call Aldo, but did not reach Aldo. I have talked to Mr. Haggerty. I've run it by Sam Stivers. And based on their extensive knowledge of town and reading the bylaw, we think that you've got the right to be at the meeting and part of the quorum. You certainly can abstain from a vote, that's fine, but we do believe you count as part of the quorum because this is a reserve fund transfer. Reserve fund transfers are solely with the bailiwick of advisory, period. The fact that it is a capital asset, I don't think is necessarily relevant to a reserve fund transfer. So we believe that you've got the ability to be part of the quorum. But we're not going to vote on this officially anyway. So I think it's the vote's going to be just like the one we did for Jim, which is conceptually, we are going to approve of the use of the reserve fund to buy this boat. It is an emergency and it's needed. Fits the requirements of reserve fund. So that's what we're saying tonight. When we say we conceptually approve, we think it is a reserve fund, or it's able to be a reserve fund transfer. It meets the qualifications. So anyone have an issue with what I just said?
And I think, Jason, we voted as capital unanimously to support. I don't know if
That's correct.
Hey, Jason, this is a brand new boat, I take it?
That's correct.
And do you have any historical usage as to approximate number of times per year they have used this piece of equipment?
Well, it's used for training more than anything else.
Okay.
But one of the things I should have mentioned that was raised in the capital discussion is the access points, particularly around the reservoir, are particularly rocky in terms of where they have to deploy the equipment. And that's candidly why we're in the situation we're in. I also, Chief Achilles has said he thinks this is going to be a 10-year asset whenever it gets acquired. And he has a different opinion with the former fire chief, Chief Morrow, in terms of what they should be using, and believes that this is a more durable boat for the conditions that exist in Southborough as compared to what was maybe previously purchased. They have, not to go into details, John, to fully answer your question, they have used it on a pretty extensive emergency during this fiscal year alone.
Thanks.
Okay, anybody else before we make the conceptual motion vote? Okay, AP, you want to make the motion?
Nope.
Just use approximately 17,000. Excuse
I don't
me.
know if I- if
Sorry. Okay, I'll make the motion. So the motion is to conceptually approve a future reserve fund transfer of the new inflatable boat that Chief Achilles has described to us to replace the one that is leaking.
Second.
So Mr. Rooney seconded, Claire. Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Jason?
Abstain.
Cook is aye. AP?
Abstain.
Tim?
Nay.
Mr. Rooney?
Aye.
Okay, so Claire, the vote's 3-0-2.
Tim was a nay, so I think it was actually 2-1.
Tim, you said nay? I'm having trouble hearing you. So you said, just to be clear, you said nay?
I said nay. I don't feel it's an emergency, and I feel it's a capital expenditure that should go before fall town meeting, as
Okay,
opposed
so
to.
you'll have a chance to, make a second case when we actually vote on it. But right now, at least the committee has voted to tentatively approve it. So 2-1-2. Got that, Claire?
I do.
Okay. All right. Okay, so now we're going to talk about our advisory bylaw. And can you bring over Diana Wainwright, Jason?
Yeah. I can. And is Mr. Hegarty staying for this? Or do you
Yes.
want to go back to the audience?
No, he's going to stay with us.
Okay.
Al, is that you? So you're muted.
pressed the S to unmute, but see,
I know.
there we go. He's unmuted.
Al, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I'm sure that muting me is probably many people's desire.
No, not true at all. Not true at all. Nope, 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 nope.
Partially true, Al, depends on the night.
Tim, we want Al on our side here. So no, Al, you're totally welcome. Always, always. Okay, so does everybody know Mr. Hamilton? I know Jason does. Andrew, do you know Al?
Yep.
Okay, and I know Tim does. Okay, so Al, you're among friends here. So you're here at our depleted advisory committee meeting. So the plan is, so Al, they've announced, Board of Selectmen decided last night to have the fall town meeting October 4th that they have planned to have. We plan to bring forth, make another attempt to change the advisory bylaw. We were trying to get 3 things changed at the regular town meeting. One was easy, which we didn't really focus on, which is to formally add, there he is, formally add a vice chair. So I assume no one still has an issue with that one. The next easiest one was to change the number of committee members from 9 to 7. So we'll talk about that one first. And then the last one that was the subject of most of the contention at town meeting was to allow an advisory member to be on a particular standing committee, not appointed by the moderator, whose charge is to deal with the capital plan of the town. And then, as everyone knows, we were trying to also, in the next article, get the capital planning committee converted to a standing committee. So that got withdrawn when we realized that 32 was going to fail. Because if 33 passed, then we really would have had a problem with advisory. Jason and Andrew would not have been able to be on both at that point. So the capital planning committee right now is still ad hoc. And so Jason and Andrew are still on that. That's where we stand tonight. So we are reopening the discussion as far as what we can do at the fall town meeting to maybe convince the town that this is the prudent course of action. So let's start with the number first. Has anyone changed their mind that we want to try to get the number changed from 9 to 7 as far as the members? Okay, so no one on advisory seems to have changed their mind. Al, do you want to speak to that, or you just want to focus on the?
Yeah, I'll tell you that when I was on advisory, I did a pretty wide review of how other advisory/finance committees are structured, and certainly 7 is not a crazy number. And I know it's hard to get people to serve right now, so that I don't have an objection to changing to 7.
And just so you know, there's few people that you're looking at have been on 9-member committees lately, and we all, I think, unanimously feel that 7 is a much more effective number. That 9 is too many. It's unwieldy. So we actually feel like 7's the right number anyway. Absent the practical problem, it's hard to get people to serve, which doesn't help either. So there's a compelling reason to do this, and then we've got a practical problem that we really are having trouble recruiting appropriate people for advisory right now. Okay, so that sounds like we're still on board to do that. And does everyone agree that we want to do this in a separate article at fall town meeting? With just this being the article going from 9 to 7, so we don't conflate the two like we did.
And the vice chair, you're gonna do those two together.
Well, I'd say do those two together, don't you, Jason?
That's what I'm suggesting. Yeah.
No, I don't think we gotta separate the vice chair, surely. So we put those two on one article, and then we separate that from the standing committee issue. Everybody agree with that as far as way forward with that one?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Now let's talk about the bigger issue, the one that caused the most concern at town meeting, which is allowing one advisory member to be on any permanent standing committee that is charged with dealing with the capital plan of the town. So everybody's got the background. We know how we've gotten to where we are as far as what's going on. We like our capital planning committee. We think it has well served the town, and therefore like the idea of it being a permanent committee. So I think no one's changed their mind about that. It is currently appointed by the Board of Selectmen. So there has been some discussion about changing that, and that might alleviate some of the concerns of Al and some of the others at town meeting, that we were mixing up the legislative branch committee with the executive branch committee. So there has been talk about letting the moderator appoint some of them, let the moderator appoint the whole thing. So there's different permutations that have been thrown around since town meeting as far as what we might do to satisfy enough people, including people who really understand this process, which is Mr. Hamilton for sure, and see if we can get the town meeting to approve it. So any other ideas about what you think we should do to try to get this passed? Assuming we still think it's the right thing to do. Go ahead, Al.
Thank you. First off, I want to say thank you to all of you, because I know how hard this job is and how thankless it is. And so I want to applaud and thank you for your service to the town. I'm going to blather on for about 3 minutes because I did some calculations the other day. I'm a numbers guy, and so I've lived in town for about 25 years. In fact, it is 25 years this year, and my taxes have more than tripled. And so I went back and I looked at it, and because over that 25 years, the consumer price index increased by about 2.4%. Wages and salaries increased by about 2.8% on a compound annual basis. And the cost of government increased by about 4.5%, at least the cost of local government. And it's actually a little worse than that, because we're actually getting a lot less service for our 4.5%, largely because our school populations have dramatically declined from where they were when I moved in 1996. And so that's kind of, I look at those numbers and I say, maybe the taxpayer's not getting such a great deal. That if this was your business and you were presented with those sorts of facts, you might be concerned. And I am, in fact, concerned. I'm not going to put it in any more pejorative terms than that. And the reality of our form of government, which is kind of unique, is that the deck is kind of stacked against the taxpayer. And I view the one bulwark against or the bulwark on government spending as the advisory committee, as being an independent review of government spending. And I know how hard you guys work at this. And I am very concerned about your losing your independence. And it's perfectly human nature. You guys see, all of the challenges of town government up close and personal. And I had the same problem, believe me. And you want to dive in and fix it, or you want to get your hands on it and help people solve a problem, because, it's probably why you joined. And it's a very understandable thing. But as you start the process of planning for expenditures, which is what capital planning does, you inevitably, I think, cross the line from an independent reviewer to an advocate. And I don't believe it's proper for advisory to advocate. Advisory is supposed to look with a certain amount of skepticism at every dollar that we spend to make sure that the taxpayers and the receivers of service are getting value for their expenditures. And that's a huge job. And so that's kind of, my philosophical concern about having the members of the advisory committee become too close to the process of developing spending plans. You should be reviewing and approving or disapproving, or really recommending or not recommending spending plans. And that's kind of my biggest concern about this is that you cross the line, into the executive territory. It is the executive's job to develop spending plans. And so that's kind of my 2 cents. I'll get off the soapbox now and turn it back over to Kathy.
Yeah, hey, Al, Kathy, can I just interrupt for 1 second? Al, I appreciate
Sure.
your thoughts, but right now, with our liaison positions with various departments, every advisory member to some extent becomes an advocate for that department. So for instance, I deep dived the Council on Aging budget, sat down with Pam and Bill Harrington and got the budget ready to be presented at town meeting. And then I advocated for that budget in front of advisory. Your statement that, no one on advisory should be an advocate. While I agree in theory, I think in practice, we all have been. And I just wanted to know your thoughts, Al, as to whether or not you think even that interaction causes you concern.
So we actually faced this when I originally joined advisory, and they had just done away with that practice specifically for that reason. So it's a practice that comes and goes, I guess. And,
We've had it, Al, ever since I've been on advisory, so I don't remember not having liaisons.
Yeah, I know that. So I joined when Marty Healy was chair, and it was a practice that we actually had just abandoned, and so it may have come back up. I think it comes and it goes. I think maybe the right answer is that if you're the liaison, you don't vote on that budget. If you want to advocate, then I don't think you should advocate and review. That seems like it's the old, you can't serve two masters well.
I don't think
I would disagree a little bit with Mr. Mooney as far as what the liaisons have been doing historically. First of all, we've tried to assign liaisons that weren't necessarily attached to that department for some reason. And I've always looked at the liaison as one that is not necessarily advocating for a budget, but is one that helps the department explain their budget, really does a deep dive that everybody else won't have time to do, and can answer questions and be ready for questions rather than just say, oh, I think this is the right budget. I think that this is what you should approve. So I would differ a little bit with Mr. Mooney as far as what the liaisons have done historically. But let's go back to what Al said at first, as far as, the inflation versus the way the budget's done. So Al, love to have suggestions on what you do with a budget that is 90% salaries, and most of those salaries are union driven. And that union year-over-year increase is about 3%. I mean, that's where we start. It's a 3% increase. So this year we ended up with 3.19 year-over-year projected tax increase. Last year it was 1.33. So believe me, I'm with you. In my mind, I'm always trying to look at inflation and say, this is what, the COLA increases for Social Security and da-da-da. But it's hard. I mean, you start behind, you're behind when you start. You don't start at zero, and you start at the least 3%, and usually it's more because of things that are just built in. So love to have some of your pearls of wisdom about how to deal with something that's so fixed and embedded. I don't know how to deal with a union contract in Little Southborough other than to say, this is what it is.
Yeah, there's a reason I don't do this anymore. And because I talked about this stuff, and it became frustrating. Jason has seen my frustration, and bless you for doing what you do. All right, well, let's start. We are receiving roughly we're providing roughly 30% less education today than in our K-8 system. I haven't looked at the Algonquin numbers lately, than we were 25 years ago. But I don't think our headcount has matched that reduction in service. So, those are tough questions that really do need to be answered. over 10 years ago, I did a projection on school populations, which turned out to be scarily accurate. I'm usually not that prescient. And, we still are not wrestling with that nightmare. And there is no reason to believe that school populations are going to increase in the foreseeable future. And, we have, avoided hard issues because it's easy to get stuff through town meeting. The people, for better and worse, our form of government, the people that support spending show up at town meeting, and the rest of the people don't. And so, that's why I really think of you guys as sort of the bulwark of, fiscal sanity, because you are, I think, the only bulwark, because I think town meeting, on some issues, they're a lot of fun to listen to, but on spending, it's, I think in my entire history, I've seen one budget cut in the 25 years I've been going to town meeting. And
The one that you cut last year.
Yes, I know. I said I could die a happy man.
So, you're right. The townspeople that support schools will come out and support the schools. So it's really hard to do anything to the school budget. But some of the non-school age parents, the ones that are a little bit older, do watch the budget. But when it comes time to cut a specific budget, that's where you can't get it done. It's like you hate Congress, right? But you like your individual congressman. Same thing when we had a chance a few years ago to truly do something that made sense. And I leave it to you to remember which one it was. Boy, did the town have a fit when one person was laid off. And the thinking behind it was sound. Advisory applauded the person, and then it just blew up. So it's really hard to reduce headcount, which is why this committee especially is trying to at least avoid increasing headcount because of the overall cost per person. It's very hard to reduce headcount, but we're at least trying to not increase headcount to the extent that we can. So that's been a focus the last couple of years. But, to say we've worked really hard to keep the budget down is truly a true statement. We really, really, really have. Okay, so back to our issue with capital. So capital planning is not a department like the library is, like the Board of Health is. It's capital planning for the whole town. So it just made sense to advisory, because of its financial focus, should be intimately involved in putting together that plan. Not necessarily to advocate in front of advisory. In fact, the advisory bylaw says when they come to advisory, they have to stand down. So we're still fine with that. That the proposals we met would still require that one person, and we were going to have only one person, would not be able to vote or speak to that issue as an advisory member. They could come as a capital planning member, present it, and then they would have to be quiet. So that was still intended. So given that was the intention, it still doesn't sound like that's enough for you to allow one advisory member to do their job there, do their work, take their financial expertise to that committee, make sure the committee understands the broad budget so they know what the parameters are, so we don't end up with some crazy plan that doesn't fit at all, and then come back and as capital planning present to advisory, then advisory, the rest of the advisory members take it from there. That's what our plan was.
And Al, I looked around the towns and I found a good number of towns, including Northborough and Westborough, that have a finance representative on their capital committee.
As I recall,
not uncommon.
Yeah. As I recall, the previous proposal did not require the non-voting of the advisory member. But if you put that in, I'd probably
not on capital, but on advisory, they're not allowed to vote.
No, it did, Al. So that change was going to still require the capital member on advisory to basically recuse themselves, just like before, and not be able to vote or speak to it. Not be able to vote, not ask questions. They'd be there as a capital member when capital was in front of advisory, period, and then they would stand down.
If you can make them also a non-voting member of the capital planning committee, I think that would preserve your independence in my mind.
But then, Al, in that instance, is the person allowed to then vote on advisory, or do they get no vote?
That's a good question. Let me think about it and I'll get back to Kathy on that.
So when you think about it, you know what it takes to sit on advisory. And I
Yeah.
would say capital planning's meetings have gone just as long, if not longer, than advisory meetings in at least the last 15, 16 months that we've been around. So, I think it's going to be hard pressed to even ask if it got structured that way, just in hypothetical, I think it's going to be very hard pressed to ask anyone to spend that amount of time and have no vote anywhere. And really the main mechanism that I think the initial thought process was someone that can help connect the dots, because that's something that our town government has been awful at, right? And I
You are correct.
so, and I guess when you think about it, the other thing I'd throw out there is, this will probably surprise a few of you. My thing has evolved in this because I think we do have to listen to what we heard at town meeting, but we also need to realize it was 125 people that voted, and not 500 people or any sort of our larger type of town meetings. But most of what capital planning did over the last 15, 16 months was advisory in nature. We pretty much beat up every department head that came to us with a capital item. In some, we beat up so much that they were not thrilled. But you know what? We ended up with a very comprehensive plan that didn't favor one department over another. And we also didn't have a department head saying, I didn't get what I needed at capital. So essentially what capital advanced to the Board of Selectmen and to advisory for consideration for the ultimate warrant article was something that was well vetted in advisory nature. Now, the one exception I would say to that was on the townhouse project, because the decision was made to seek CPA funds. We had a department head that wasn't a town resident that needed some help advocating for why it actually should be a CPA funded project and not a general fund project. So I would say there clearly was a little bit of advocacy, but I would say 95%, and Andrew and Kathy, please correct me if you disagree with this, 95% of what we did on capital in the last year was advisory in nature to basically streamline the thought process for both advisory as an independent board, but also the Board of Selectmen to make a recommendation as the executives of the town in the warrant.
I mean, I would say everything we do on capital and what we do as liaisons is review and challenge. And it's review and challenge that we break off into subsequent groups and smaller groups, individuals, or capital planning as a committee to review and challenge certain financial aspects of the town. And I mean, we could have advisory handle the capital items in the same depth as capital planning, and we could review each individual budget. I mean, I must have spent 40 hours on the DPW budget with Karen and team. We could have all 40 hours with the entire advisory and with all the capital, but we would be in 3 hours of advisory meetings every night. So as an out of efficiency, we're doing the review and challenge, with the areas. We beat them up as much as we can. We're fair. And then we come back and say, this is the process we took. We don't advocate. We explain. We say, I challenge Karen on this. I challenge Karen on that. I think this is a good idea. I think we've gotten it as low as we can. Does anybody have any questions? And I can give details on line item by line item because I've reviewed every line item. And I think that's, basically efficient. And then you come to the committee and then they review it in general. But I couldn't imagine trying to do this with the entire committee and handle the capital. I think and personally, if I had to sit on all the capital meetings, and I have, and not have a vote, or at least not have a vote in advisory, I mean, it's just not worth my time. I mean, that's just, I have better things to do, Al. But that's just my opinion.
But until this year, advisory did do what Andrew just said, and it was hard, and the capital was always rushed at the end. And this year it went, Al, I just can't tell you how much more smoothly it went because capital did their work early. And we had an idea of, how they ranked, what we should do. They went to BOS, weighed in, and we kind of knew what it looked like. So it really gave us a tool. as we started working on the budget to kind of know where capital was going to go. And then we went back at one point and said, it's got to be reduced because it still doesn't quite fit, because, you know, we had truncated the previous year's capital because of the pandemic, and therefore a lot of it spilled over. So it was too much money. So it still had to be reduced. So their first list of what they thought should be approved got reduced because advisory in part said it's too, you know, we don't have enough money to do it. It's got to go down, and it did go down. So I thought it worked truly beautifully. Now, I don't know what anybody else thought, but, you know, it really did take a lot of pressure. So we really could focus on the operating budgets. So, you know, advisory, it just doesn't have the bandwidth to do everything that capital did. And then what we did others, there's just truly not enough time in the day for people who, you know, worked in the day and have to try to fit this in at night.
And I would agree with Al. I don't like the executive legislation. I actually would make capital planning a moderator appointed committee, just like advisory. But I think it should be there, and I think we should have finance and advisory representation.
Yeah, I think certainly if it was a moderator appointed, then it's a subcommittee of town meeting, and that actually eliminates it. Although, frankly, capital planning is an executive function, in my opinion. But
yeah, I mean, a lot of the other towns, I mean, Westboro, it's appointed by the moderator, Northborough moderator. I mean, like Northborough is 6 members, 3 by the moderator, 1 from the planning board, 1 from the school committee, and 1 from the advisory committee. You know, something similar to that. I don't think that's a bad kind of structure.
And the predecessor committee in Southborough used to be moderator appointed too. So one time we had it moderator appointed.
I was actually chair of that committee.
And I was too. I was too.
And it was, yeah. Look, I'm not going to fight you on this one. If you leave it that that they can vote in the capital budget committee, but they have to abstain in advisory, I'm not going to speak against it going forward. I may.
But Al, you think a moderator appointed makes more sense than a board of selectmen? I kind of would agree with that.
Yeah, yes, because in fact, if you're going to have a capital plan, you know, the board of selectmen only control about 25–30% of town government.
If that.
And, you know, I mean, they don't control the schools, they don't control the library, they don't control
Board of Health.
You know, you know, all of the minor executives. And so having it be a moderator appointed, you know, cures a whole bunch of sins or ills. I shouldn't use the word sin. And because in fact, there is no executive body that ties the whole government together. In some respects, the only one that does that is advisory, which is why the budget is yours and not the selectmen's.
Yep. Okay.
I've said my piece, and I do want to just say thank you very much again for all the work you guys do.
We thank
Appreciate your wisdom.
You do too.
No, I think Al, I think we're headed towards an answer. I mean, we have a duty to listen, and I appreciate your time because I think we all have an interest in getting this right. We don't want to just throw something up against the wall and hope it sticks. We want it to be effective.
Yeah, we only do this one more time. We hope.
It takes 3 times.
We want the second time to be the charm.
Okay, well, that'd be unusual.
Well, there's two motions, right? So maybe the third one is the.
Yeah, that's true. You could get half a loaf. I'm sure that 7 and the first one would go through without too much difficulty.
So with the 7, we would appreciate you speaking to town meeting when you've got the microphone and vociferously supporting that one, both of them.
Okay.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Cool.
Kathy, can I have a suggestion on that?
Yes.
Sure, Jim.
Sorry, Jim.
Maybe you want me to consider for the fall town meeting, having only bring one article forward to reduce the number of members from 9 to 7 and to create the vice chair position, and then address the other issue in the spring. That way you avoid the issue of anything being conflated there.
That is not an unreasonable thing to do, and we'll talk about that. There's some wisdom in doing it that way.
And just full disclosure, capital planning is all set for another year, at least from a board of selectmen perspective. We need some members like advisory, but I think absent that, we're good to go from a procedural charge perspective.
So through what date, Jason?
6:30, another year.
6/30/22, good. Okay, that's
Yeah.
good. That's helpful to know too. Okay, Mr. Hamilton, go back to the Victory Garden.
Yeah, all right, will do. By the way, I have receipts for you.
Okay, send them on.
I will.
Okay,
Thanks, Al.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Al.
Bye.
bye-bye. All right. Okay, so what do you guys think? Jason?
I like Mr. Hegarty's idea a lot. Let's deal with the immediate issue and obviously get a placeholder in whenever the warrant opens from the BOS. And I'd like to hear Mr. Semino's view on Andrew's discussion around moderator. The item I'd like to explore, and I don't have a view yet, is the school committee has their own capital planning committee. So Kathy, as you know, from our subcommittee, we end up having to jointly post with them to save Greg 2 meetings, right? And he oftentimes, until I figured it out, was doing 2 of the same meetings. I'm like, this is just the silliest thing I've ever seen. So I
Especially
believe
because their
would
committee's
everyone
so
view the
small.
school committee, would everyone view school committees as executives like the Board of Selectmen?
Yep.
Like they're elected, they control their own budget subject to town meeting approval. So I would like to find a way to capture that group, right? So that they understand what else the town is facing to be able to prioritize their needs. But I'm also cautious of introducing an executive member because, as you know, Ms. Braccio sits on our committee right now too. So I'd also like BOS to weigh in at the same time as the moderator and potentially even the school committee about what is the right answer to join forces and streamline it, but at the same time not blur the lines from an independence perspective, et cetera. So I think that's the homework we have to do that maybe even gives more credence to Mr. Hegarty's recommendation to wait till the spring on this particular item.
I think considering merging the two is absolutely something that should be looked at too, because it just, the town's got to approve it anyway. So let's just do it all together so that it's a coherent decision. Okay, so that's Jason's viewpoint. Andrew, AP?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the capital planning committees that I saw have a school committee member and a selectman member. I think that makes a lot of sense to collapse it.
Okay, but so the issue as far as, let's just do the timing. Do you agree that we should go to the fall town meeting with approving 9 to 7 and vice chair and wait until the regular town meeting in 22 to deal with on the capital committee?
I could go either way. I don't think it really matters. The only concern I have, it's not so much of a concern. Hopefully we're having a regular town meeting in March, is that we would have, if it was approved, we would have it done by July 1st, hopefully, and approved by the AG's office. That would be my only concern. That we were going to have this year, since it was late, was the timing of that. But I think
But you just had the Board of Selectmen extended until the AG
Yeah, the ad hoc.
officially approves the warrant language if it were to pass.
yeah, that's true. You could do that.
And
They
you
could
wouldn't
do a
think that's
1
one
month.
that anybody would get too hung up on once it got past town meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, so Andrew, you're
I'm okay with March.
agnostic as far as the timing goes, but you agree that we should have 2 different warrant articles, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right, Tim?
Yes.
Okay, 2 different warrant articles, and you prefer waiting to spring town meeting, regular town meeting to do the capital piece? And only deal in the fall, try to get the number down from 9 to 7, add the vice chair, which should be a no-brainer.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Mr. Mooney?
I think it can all be done in one fell swoop, especially if Al is going to support it. I mean, what is the delay going to do? It's essentially going to delay the voting. Will the delay at all impact any capital improvement votes? Is my
No.
question. If the answer to that is no, then you know what, you can do it in next annual. But my sense is that you've teed it up already. The main objection has been addressed. Why not put it forward at the fall town meeting?
Well, there's a practical consideration of waiting. I'm surprised Jason didn't explain what the difference would be. If we go for it at the fall town meeting and it gets approved and implemented fairly quickly, that means only one person from advisory can be on capital. Right now, there's 2 on capital and there's 2 on the school research committee. So it would have a drastic impact on that. So if we wait until the spring, the school research subcommittee, I would think, would have its work done by then, Jason, as far as its specific task.
The
So-
superintendent requested through December 31st,
2021.
21, yes.
Okay, so that work would be done, we think, right? I mean, there's no reason for us to think that won't
It
happen.
would be it should be a new committee at that point based on whatever recommendations come out of that.
Yeah, new committee,
Or-
let's just say theoretically that the recommendation is to close the school, right? And it's going to entail possibly spending money on NERI to get it into shape to last for another 30 years. So there would be a separate building committee to actually do that piece of it. So capital research committee goes away. So I've done my job, and we don't need to because the committee's gone away. And then we have given advisory more time to shore up its committee as far as numbers go, and the same thing for capital, so that when the bylaw gets approved to only allow one advisory member to be on capital, we're not going to decimate one of the 2 committees, which is what would happen right now.
I'd also probably have to resign from the SHOPC Affordable Housing Committee we've created.
Okay, so that's the practical impact, I think, of waiting and doing what Jim said, waiting till spring to deal with that piece of it. And in the fall, deal with the number and adding the vice chair. So now, Andrew P., did that change your mind as far as timing goes?
March sounds good.
Okay. So is that a yes? Okay, so no one said no to that. So let's agree that that's our tentative plan. You know, we've got more time to talk about it before we're ready to actually get it on the warrant. But right now, our tentative plan is to put on the fall warrant, reducing the committee from 9 to 7, adding a vice chair, and to wait until the spring to deal with allowing advisory to have one person on a permanent standing capital committee. Whichever way we do we decide we want to recommend that it be moderator appointed. We've got time to deal with that piece of it. We now at least know what the timing is of what we're going to do. Any issues with that? Okay, Jason saying no. AP?
Nope.
Tim? Okay, Mr. Rooney?
No issue.
Okay, all right. So got that, Claire? Make sure we get that in the minutes very accurately, please. All right, Jim, sounds like you think that's the way to go.
You never know what the mood of the fall town meeting is going to be. And this just ensures that you'll have a good shot to get both done and it won't get sidetracked if the mood of the hall turns unpleasant.
And it gives us more time to recruit.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, so unless anybody's got any more comment, we're done with that one for the night. Okay, the next one on the list is update on use of federal state funds to offset pandemic related expenses. And that's in my bailiwick. And I have spent a ton of time so far and I'm still not done. So I'm not ready to go much further tonight into that, but I will be ready at the next meeting. So anyone have any questions, any issues as far as that one goes? It's more complicated than we think.
What is the actual number we're going to? I thought selectmen. Somebody said something about 7 million, which that didn't seem right. But
Not that I know of. And we've gotten $500,000 in the bank already. We're trying to figure out when the Worcester piece of it's coming. So no, it's not 7. I don't know where someone's come up with 7, Andrew.
Just north of 3.
yeah, that's what I-
2/3 of that from the county and 1/3 of that is direct to Southborough.
Now, having said that, there are other pools of money that are out there. For example, the state of Massachusetts was allocated $5.8 billion from the ARP, and the governor and legislator are fighting over who gets to decide how that gets allocated. The first time around, Governor Baker got dibs on how the CARES Act money got allocated. Legislature this time is saying, no, we're going to do it. So they're trying to get that resolved. It may have gotten resolved today. I haven't heard, but they basically have vetoed his ability to use it. He actually proposed to do half of it and they still said no to that. So we'll see. So that's a big chunk of money that's going to be allocated to the state. So that's got to be decided. And then, and this is a piece I still don't have my arms around. So I heard this as driving around on the radio one day, not too long ago. The Boston superintendent was on the radio, and they were asking her about all the money that had been allocated from the American Rescue Plan directly to schools, not to the city of Boston, but to schools. And the question that she was asked was, are you going to determine how it gets split among all the Boston schools? Are you going to, are you going to determine how it gets spent among the schools? Are you going to give the money to the schools themselves and let them figure it out? So I still don't have a clear answer on whether there is another chunk of money coming directly to, for example, Algonquin as a district. So there may be even more of that. But again, I don't know where 7 million is coming from, Andrew. I don't think that number's right. I don't know how you could get to 7 and anyway. But it's still a lot of money for Southborough. You know, $3 million is a lot of money. Okay, you ready? So any public comment from our attendees tonight? So seeing none, I will keep going. So summer schedule. I did talk to Mr. Ballantyne after we met last time, and he did not say that they won't be ready July 7th, which is 2 weeks from tonight, as far as reserve fund transfers and interdepartmental transfers. I thought he would, but he didn't. So I'm still waiting to hear for sure, but he seemed to think it was a reasonable date to shoot for. So right now we still got July 7th on our calendar. Obviously we have to have a new member to even meet. So after Mr. Rooney's term is up June 30th, we don't have a quorum anymore with our 4 people. So we really do have to get busy and make sure that by July 7th, we have at least 5 people and hopefully 7 people.
So Kathy, just one thing to note on that evening, capital planning, it's really the only date we had to choose from, needs to conduct interviews related to an RFQ. Their schedule starts at 7:30. So if you think it's, I don't know how, we obviously don't know what the volume is.
Are you saying that that Capital has a meeting scheduled for July 7th? Is that what you're saying?
That was really the only date we could align on, but it starts at 7:30. So I don't know how long it's going to take or if they're even going to be ready, but I just wanted to make you aware of that because we need to formalize something in advance of BOS meeting on the 13th.
Okay, so let's just take this one step at a time. Let's make sure we can have a meeting first. And then I will circulate, I don't think we can get it all done in an hour. I wouldn't want to count on it. There's very few meetings, even meetings that we thought were going to go fast, go beyond that. So I don't think we can count on it, Jason. We could start earlier if you could do that. Tim, I don't know what your work schedule looks like. I work long hours, but I'm very flexible when I work. So I could do an earlier time. AP, not sure about you.
Yeah,
It's gonna be a long night for you guys, though. Sorry.
I wouldn't try to squeeze it in on the 7th, but
Okay.
maybe we look for a different day.
So why don't we do this? Because we know the 14th still works, and I still think in the end, Brian's going to say they're not quite ready. So why don't we just move our 7th to the 14th, assuming that works for at least the 4 people that are still on advisory. Okay.
Virtual or in person?
I say we still do Zooms for now.
Okay.
I think
Fine.
Zooms work better for some of us. And so, whatever we got to do to get everybody here, I'd say we do Zoom at least for now.
Good with that.
Anybody disagree with that, Tim? I mean, Judy, really didn't like the Zooms, but she's not here. So we do Zooms for now because I think it helps people get here. And when we've got to get everybody here, we got to try to do what we can to get everybody here. Okay. All right. So let's just move it officially to the 14th, and that will take the pressure off Capital. They can have their meeting, and then it'll give Brian more time and Carla to get everything together. Okay. All right. Okay. So that's all I've got for tonight. Anybody else have anything? Okay. So not bad. 7:55 for us. Okay. So we know what our main job is. So keep me posted. Keep Mr. Semino posted. Okay. He actually, the phones that go off when they're supposed to go off, the butt dials that are no longer butt dials, you just touch it the wrong way, right? So I usually go to bed pretty late, but my phone rang, and I keep my phone by my bed because I never know what's going to go wrong with, somebody who depends on me. So, and I sleep light. So the phone went off at 1 a.m. Saturday, and I looked over, it was Paul Semino. And then the next thing I know, there's a video chat coming through at 1 a.m. from Paul Semino. I thought, oh my gosh, surely this is not about an advisory member. He's got a hot prospect. But when he sent me an email, I said, say, sorry, that was a mistaken dial. And I said, oh, too bad. I thought you had somebody that you just couldn't wait to tell me about. So anyway, okay. So on that note, Mr. Rooney, I just wanted to say how much I enjoyed working with you. Always have. I have such great respect for who you are, what you've done for this town. I appreciate everything you've done with advisory. And I really hope that we see you.
Thank you, Kathy. I can tell you that I've sat on a lot of committees, and this committee is not only the most talented, but it's got the most committed, dedicated members. That it's extraordinary the amount of work that people do behind the scenes. I know it because I've done it for over the last decade. But everyone on this committee is just so damn committed to making this town better. And my only advice is just keep doing that. Don't look at the political whims or the vocal minority, but just keep focused on making the town better, because it really, Kathy, it's been an honor and a privilege to be associated with this group. And I've been here 31 years. I'm not going anywhere, so you'll see me around.
Okay. On that beautiful note, thank you very much. So we'll see everybody on the 14th, most likely. Night, everybody. Night, Jim.
Motion to adjourn.
Sorry.
Judy's not here to move, so I
Right. So what can I do? Okay, John, you get to do the last motion.
Yeah, I would move that the advisory committee, the esteemed advisory committee, end its discourse for the evening.
Second.
Second from AP. Roll call vote. Jason.
Aye.
AP.
Aye.
Mr. Martell. Cook is aye. And Mr. Rooney?
Aye.
All right.